So welcome everyone. This is our, let me see, third year of doing these events. We've done 3 full years. All of this started actually with a Juneteenth event back in 2020, and a lot of changes have happened on the flyer for this event. We actually have the different flyers that we've had for this last year. We were able to do a book club, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We did a panel on racism and professionalism. We did a movie screening of A Beautiful Thing and had some guests help talk about what that movie's impact really had on them and things that we can learn and grow and share. And then we also were very lucky to have Dr. Frank Harris come and join us along with Kia Pollard from By Any Means Necessary, and our own Dr. Joseph Lathan from the Department of Learning and Teaching to talk about critical race theory and how we can heal as a community. So it's been a really exciting year for us. And today we are excited to have Kalia Ike guiding us in reflecting, honoring, and expressing using the Saturday morning letters that she created. Marcus, do you want to give the land acknowledgement?
Yeah. So this was actually a collaborative piece that we had given to us from our tribal liaison's office, working with Samuel Atewa. And these are just some of the things that she thought would be a good thing to highlight for everybody out there watching. So we acknowledge that the land on which USD is built is the traditional and unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Nation. We pay respect to the citizens of the Kumeyaay Nation, both past and present, and their continuing relationship to their ancestral lands. At the University of San Diego, we begin many events, gatherings, and meetings with this land acknowledgement, cultivating mindfulness of where we are and the history of this place. We also regularly begin with a prayer, seeking to ground ourselves firmly in our purpose and mission, establishing that solid foundation before diving deep into the numerous important issues that typically occupy our time and attention. This way of proceeding with the land acknowledgement and prayer is intended to help us be mindful of our history, purpose, and mission, about what we most deeply want to be, about why we do what we do. Your resources.
Yeah, one of the things that we've also tried to do within each of our events is not just give a land acknowledgement to say, hey, we're on the land of the Kumeyaay Nation, but we also want to give kind of an action item or a way that our participants can learn more about the Kumeyaay. And so we just want to point out that the Kumeyaay actually have a webpage. And one of the sections of their webpage is on the American Indian museums. And they go through, and there's plenty of online museums that people can take a look at and learn more about the tribe's storytelling, the different artwork and culture. So it's very useful, and we'll be sending out the slide deck, so you're more than welcome to take a look at this link as well. Another tradition that we've had since the very beginning of doing these events is really looking at the solidarity statement. We co-constructed this statement back in June of 2020 in response to the televised murders of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor, and many, many others. And then we revised this last August. And so, Marcus, would you mind maybe reading this too?
Yeah. So, oh, got one. So yeah, a lot just to go along with that. Obviously we want to be empowering Black lives, really uplifting, dismantling white supremacist ideology, the systems in place and structures that are operating as barriers for Black and Brown people, establishing anti-racist and equitable hiring processes, making it easier for folks to get jobs that are actually sustainable for living in communities, designing and implementing culturally and linguistically relevant, responsive, and proficient practices. So just making sure that we're actually in touch with the community, understanding what their needs are and how those are being met, creating spaces to elevate consciousness. That's pretty self-explanatory. Having a safe space for knowledge and variety and differences are accepted. Confronting inequities using research data, and obviously evidence that lead to actionable reforms for more equitable outcomes, and advancing curriculum and instruction to call out and address systematic injustices, which is, obviously we want to be calling out when structures are in place being recognized as unjust, not really making things more equitable, more accessible to students, BIPOC students, students of color. We want to be sharing skills and strategies for white allyship, trying to help them understand what can they be doing, from small things to, large actions and big gestures. What can they be doing to, try and mend the space and find a new role and identity in the space. So we're going to be keeping these in mind.
I muted myself. There we go. Thank you. So just to kind of go back to our 4 events that we've had this year. As I mentioned, we had a book club, a reading circles on the book Stamped, where we looked at racism, anti-racism, and you. Marcus and Richard were able to facilitate a mid-term or mid-book reading circle, and then also a final culminating discussion around the book Stamped. We chose that book, really trying to think about it is usually written for about the junior high level. And so we wanted to provide information about that. It was really exciting because we were able to give out, I think it was over 40, is that right, Marcus? Copies of the book to
between 40 and 50.
across campus and also online. And so we really were able to kind of share the reading and the experience with others, which was nice. Do you want to talk about the racism and professionalism event that we had?
So that was one of our events that we put on last year. We had a nice panel of, a lot of variety that represented, essentially ideal positions that, the audience could, envision themselves in. So they tried to make, the message seem a little bit more relatable. We had Marshall Goodman. I believe Richard brought him in from accounting, and he actually knows a lot about like redlining and historical disparities in Black neighborhoods. We had, I believe it's Brioni Dubois from nursing here, and she had a different insight and, set of knowledges and perspectives that were very insightful of, what it can look like in, a different field, being the medical field, about how injustices, change shape a little bit, but are still there, and people still need actual tangible actions that they can go to in order to navigate these moments and these spaces. And then we had Yes, Jessica. And I believe she works at a community, or not community college, I think an actual college or of some, some sort that I can't remember right
She
now.
works at UCSD.
Oh yeah,
And
there we
she's
go.
also an influencer online
Yeah.
and a former graduate, so alumni of the Department of Leadership Studies.
And she does a lot of work in multiculturalism and diversity, and she's definitely not afraid to call people out and make those tangible actions, brought forth and brought to people's attention, and let them, understand that there are ways to go about handling situations when you might not have felt comfortable or felt like there was something that you could have had done more, looking back on it retrospectively. So the three of them, they offered their experiences, their opinions, and we gave them questions about just how we could all learn from what they've had to offer and navigate our own worlds and areas of interaction where we have to work in multiculturally diverse places, because that's just a small area that represents the world that we live in. We don't live in a segregated world. So they had a lot of good things to say, and we got some good questions. We got some good feedback. So that was a really positive event that we had to be a part of, and we were happy to have them. So.
And I think one of the important things that we really looked at was, what do you do either when you have been discriminated or encountered bias, or when you've witnessed it for other people. And so I think that was a nice part about the event, was that we weren't just talking about like, yes, this happens, but this happens, and these are some things that you can do. And I don't remember what Jessica called it exactly, but it was like a comfort doula or discomfort doula type thing. Like she's there to help you birth through the discomfort. I'll have to look that up. But our next event was, as I mentioned before, the screening of A Most Beautiful Thing. And Marcus, do you remember what that movie was about and want to share maybe?
So this was another community collaboration that we got to be a part of last year. We partnered with Dr. Pearson. He has many talents, but he had really good connections with this particular film, A Most Beautiful Thing. He has a lot of close personal ties with members of the movie and directors of the movie and people who directly influenced in the making of it. So we were hoping to get a chance to get that personal insight, but unfortunately they couldn't make it. But having him was still, the next best thing. We watched a movie I've never seen before, and it was really powerful. Talked about basically finding community in unlikely places, and how community is obviously very important in Black communities and to Black people, and I think this movie really shows that it doesn't really matter what the context is in which it happens around. I mean, they were working with partnering with police to compete in rowing competitions. So this was a movie that definitely exemplified that it does not have a specific look as to what partnering with authorities and things of that nature can look like. But as long as there is good communication and healing purposes involved and intentions, that good can come from it. So that was a good event. We got to partner with the rowing team at USD. They actually came, brought their own personal insights. So we were connecting with athletes and just people who like to work hard and trying to get them to understand what their passions were, and just in relation to the movie that we showed that evening. And it was a really powerful event. A lot of people had shared some very personal insights and stories, and just how they were, in a space where they could feel so vulnerable and also feel privileged in their spaces after had watching the movie, where it was exemplified that, you can still find passion through the struggle, but a lot of the audience was finding their passions through, past their privileges. So that was it was a very down to earth moment. And it was just good to hear from, an athletic department here on campus about all the good that can, come about when you bridge more than one world to, academics and social justice. So that was another amazing event that we got to be a part of this year. So
Yeah, and it was neat to hear the different perspectives because rowing has been traditionally a white sport, and so the rowing team really like sitting back with that same idea was really powerful. And it also spanned across campus, as you brought up, which is one of our goals, is to really look at how we can impact our community beyond souls, which is where this initiative started. The last event was about learning about critical race theory and healing as a community. I see Dr. Lathan is now with us. He was on the panel with Dr. Frank Harris and Kia Pollard. And that was really nice because we were able to introduce different aspects of critical race theory. I forgot to hit record. So if you go to our YouTube channel, you will miss about the first 20 minutes, which is when we really set up what we meant by critical race theory with Dr. Harris, but you can still get the gist of, the impact, the concerns, the strengths that we have within our communities. There was a lot of talk about, what the panel would like, everyone to know about critical race theory and also what hopes they have for the future. Marcus, did you have any other memories from that you wanted to share?
Just that the conversation was really starting to pick up, towards the end of our time frame. And we honestly could have went for a good another 30 minutes or maybe an hour in that direction. So it was just, it was a good group. It was good energy. And we really got into critical race theory. I feel like I got to learn about, just different perspectives from all three of our panelists. Some off campus, some on campus, some still in education. So you're getting all these different viewpoints, and it was just very nice to get back. I mean, to sit back and listen to, some real professionals who are really passionate about, the conversations being had on the topic, but also the conversations that aren't being had in certain parts of the country. So those are just some of my takeaways from our last event. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would also mention that this spring we had two events that were hybrid. So both the movie screening was hybrid. We held that in the executive classroom and then also online. And that was our first attempt and it was successful. And then our big event was the March Critical Race Theory and Healing as a Community, where we were able to actually use the grant money from the from the grant that we received to work on this, to host some tacos, and we had held that in the Warren Auditorium and then out on the plaza. And as I mentioned before, we had it hybrid as well. So we had people coming in from North Carolina, all across the US. So it was very exciting. And it really shows kind of the growth that we've had over the last few years, since Dr. Lathan and I first dreamed up doing something around social justice. So I thought maybe we could take some time, and seeing that we're not that big of a group, maybe we'll just do this as a group who is here as one whole group. And you don't have to actually be just knowing that, kind of hearing from Marcus and I talking about the last events or the events of this last year. We wanted to really think about how were these topics relevant to the community's needs, what was done well, what was missing. So if you didn't make it to any of the events, don't worry. You can just we can kind of pivot back between the two slides to remember what it was that was, or maybe what I can do is I'll share the slide that tells you about these different topics. And then we can, kind of reflect on the topics. The second question we wanted to have people give some input on is, how did we honor the community voices and experiences, and how could we do a better job? And then the last question is, what would you like to see happen in this space? So this could be topics, this could be formats, opportunities for dialogue, activities. Another one of the things that we've tried to do with every event is really focus on having different types of formats, but also having some sort of interaction with every event that we do. And so I'm going to actually go back a slide, and then I'm going to pull this down so that I can take notes. So as I mentioned, the first question is, and Marcus, if you want to maybe lead the discussion and I'll take notes, is, how were the 2022-2023 topics relevant to the community's needs? What was done well and what was missing? But not everybody at the same time talking. Does anyone have any input on, maybe we'll start with the topics?
Yeah, I just need a minute to process this. I mean, Dr. Jez, we have thought long and hard in so many areas. We brought teams together, we brought students together, faculty together to really think about the topics, and we were able to pull them off. And now it's like looking back. Now you're also looking at what it is that where people are at in this time frame where social justice and a lot of this work becomes available in a lot of other spaces, and how do we keep the interest, the branding going for USD? So for me, when you talk about what is missing, wow, I really don't know what is missing right now. And that's why I'm still thinking on it. And I have to marinate, because we've done so much. You guys have kept us going with a grant. You brought in great speaker at the last event that we had. It's just been a lot. You reached out to community, you brought people in from community, vendors, and other organizations that are aligned with what we believe in. The addressing racism, which is a lot of in whiteness, anti-racism with Kendi. That's a great a lineup for the year. You really hit a lot of areas. So the only thing I can try to figure out is, like, where is that we can keep pumping this to get the involvement, the excitement, the motivation, because what you're doing is so phenomenal. And that's why I'm here tonight. I saw the energy. I went to the Juneteenth at the BEA, the Black Alliance today. It was really good. It was really good. I wasn't able to stay the whole time, but what was really unique about it, that the event probably had more white people than it did Black people. And that was the Juneteenth celebration. And it was more white people than it was Black. But which was great to see, because that's what we want. We want to see people learning in spaces and other traditions, other nationalities, and so I'm still thinking on it. This, Dr. Jez and Marcus, you've been doing a great work. I just want to commend you on all the work you're doing, but it's not over, and we're going to keep thinking on this, and maybe others may have something to share.
That was awesome. Thank you all so much. I will admit, this is my first event, and I can definitely tell you it's the first of many for the future to come. I'm I regret I wasn't able to take part in the past ones, but I just want to echo just how truly impressed I am. I've been a part of the University of San Diego community since 2008. And there would be a time that I couldn't have imagined this type of excellent work and engaging community taking place by way of our university, and frankly, even the School of Leadership and Education Sciences. So I'm truly, truly thankful and excited. Truly excited. I do feel like this list that you all had for last year is wonderful. I'm going to go back on YouTube and check these out, take some notes. I'm sure they will resource me even more for my own scholarship and practice. I think if I would share about what I might like to see in the future and integrate it more, is maybe possibly some connections with like health and like public health. I think that could be really valuable, given the inequities, the health inequities that we are really familiar with. I could see how that could be really, really supported. And then just thinking about, in terms of continuing to grow, maybe just some potential partnerships. I know we have the Mulvaney Center on campus. I don't know if you all have partnered with them before, but they're wonderful. And then also just some like marketing things. Like, I don't think I've seen this come through, say, some of the newsletters that I'm a part of, like say the graduate student newsletter, for an example. And so I think there's ways that we can continue to spread the word. And so I'm happy to name that I'd love to be a part of that in the future and support this effort in any way. So thank you all.
Wow. That's great. I'm glad you mentioned that, because just thinking about partnership, which we have been and they have been doing, but the biggest presence for events such as this and spaces such as this is the BEA, and we need to collaborate with them because they are the ones that's really pushing. They have the more university backing. So if we could collaborate, like today was an event that we could have helped plan for Juneteenth, and it could have been together, and we didn't have to have it separate. So I what you hit, Khalil, is really you that's what we've been doing, but I think it's partnership internal. We may have been looking out, but that is the biggest, and it was over 150 to 200 people a day in that space. So it has they fed the people. They had salmon, they had chicken. So they laid it out. They gave them some entertainment. Then it was educated. I had to leave, but that's it. Just being a partner of that event will give more. So I'll stop.
Yeah, I know that was one of the initiatives that we had this year, was really on the marketing. So I think I'll put the marketing here. We do send the flyer to all the different groups. And so, but I think one of the things is kind of getting it to them in a timely way and in the format. So I think it's about being timely and then the format that they request. Marcus, you've been our marketing person. Do you have any other thoughts on that?
Just that communications will be, they'll be improving. So just like getting things out, like you guys have been already requesting, just more people need to hear about it ahead of time so they can make accurate preparations and things of that nature. So we'll definitely be working on just trying to add a little bit more time, try and get things a little bit more finalized earlier. That way everybody can, make whatever plans need to be made in order for, to be attendance and be a part of the work. So, yeah.
I also like the idea of the partnerships and really continuing to develop partnerships within and beyond. So, and I know that we have done that, but it's, that's one of those ongoing things. But I think develop further and co-plan events, because I do think, especially if there were two Juneteenth events today, then yeah, that's the type of thing that we could absolutely do in collaboration. Are there any voices that you can think of from the community that we could highlight? I know we did our best to kind of choose different voices from different schools across campus. And of course, one of the struggles we've had is everyone's so busy that it's hard to, find the time and everything. So we have heard some no's, but any thoughts of someone that we should invite or seek out? And it could be somebody at USD or in the community, and our community is worldwide. So
I have one. What's his name? Roy, the gentleman who's at the law school.
Oh, the one who they just put the
Brooks, Roy Brooks. Yeah, his
Brooks,
series.
yeah.
He's one of the strongest invites internally. I think that if we can get him on to speak, even though he has his own,
we actually have invited him, but we just need to find a time. It's probably a good time at this point because it's also
right. Okay. I would also consider Gail Baker.
Yeah.
She's great in front of the class. I've seen her do some amazing presentations in the way she does it.
Mm-hmm.
And Regina. What's her last name?
It's hyphenated.
No. Gail, Regina. It's two. These are two. Gail is the provost.
Dixon Reeves. Yeah, it's hyphenated.
There you go. I've seen her now. She goes in. I've sat in a workshop with her, and wow, she is. You don't play. You sit there and you pay attention because you're scared if you don't.
She's actually also one of the people that helped. That was on the grant that we have.
That's awesome.
So she's a good one.
She's usually, a few times I asked her for considering. She said, "Well, just let me know." So she seems to be open.
I believe that Marcus, you've reached out to her too before, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think.
Once again, it's about the calendar.
It's timing. Yeah. Timing is everything. Ooh, Charlotte Johnson. Yeah, student affairs.
Oh, she's wonderful too.
Yeah. Love her spirit.
Okay, then the last question, because I do want to get on to Kalia's presentation, is what would you like to see as far as topics, just so that we can plan for our fall. Just so you know, we actually have this is our flyer for one of our fall events. We're going to do an artist expression salon again. And we're bringing back something that we started in the summer of 2020, where we really asked for people to share their art. That could be a painting, a poem, a picture, a visual art, a dance. We've had video. We've had just about everything over the years. And we really want to have it related to the Black Lives Matter and Beyond movement to demonstrate how we can create sustainable change. So that's just kind of looking at the future. But as far as other events, is there anything that people feel like would be a good topic or format or activity that we could possibly do as our second event during the fall?
Well, I'm gonna say mental health and wellness is still a big one. Um, and I would also suggest spirituality as a topic that maybe we haven't explored, and I would be happy to be a guest panelist for that one.
Maybe like personal identity and career strengths.
Personal identity and what? I'm sorry.
Oh, career strengths. Yeah.
Hmm.
Any thoughts about even our format? Like I said, we've done the reading circles, we've done the movie, we've done the panel. We now have an activity. So any thoughts on that?
Hmm. That's good. What is the possibility, and I know it would take people to take time, if we did something more on the technology, social media side? What if we can invite people to send a video, 30 seconds or a minute video, based on a topic of whatever we think could work, and we compile those videos, make a theme, and then we go ahead and come together as a group and we go through maybe some of the videos that really, really made a sense and have dialogue set around that. Just a thought. I'm just thinking technology wise on how to do things maybe a little different, but and encourage them to send in a video. And then how do we then use those videos to leverage the topic discussion and build activities out of it?
I think we can explore that.
Yeah.
For the artist expression salon, we actually do
Yeah.
encourage video. I mean, like videos is a one way that someone could present something, but
Right. Yeah. Because without being there, but yet they can be present, then a lot of times people want to see themselves. So then they want to encourage family to maybe come and see them, you know. So even if they can't, and maybe it may be able to help bring more bandwidth to reach out at people's using the videos to be present, even if they can't be physical.
you just exhibit artist salon. You just made me think about like maybe what we could do, because we've done this also in the past where we've had two parts where like one part we do one section and then the next part we do the other. So we could almost do the artist expression salon for the first part where we just introduce the art. And then the second part is where we reflect and do some sort of activity on it. I could see that happening.
Nice. Nice.
And it's actually 3-part because first the people submit the art and then we have to put all of that together. So, okay, well, I'm going to stop us here. And Marcus, you want to read Kalia's bio?
Yeah, so without further ado, our guest for today is Miss Kalia Lee. Kalia Lee is the author of the Saturday Morning Letters newsletter, a scholar practitioner, and an advanced doctoral student in leadership studies. While supporting graduate student leaders in her work at the University of San Diego, Kalia Scholarship centers Black feminist healing methodologies and the embodied leadership experiences of Black women and women of color. She was honored with USC's Black Excellent Graduate Law Trailblazer Award just this year. Without further ado, Ms. Kalia Lee.
Woo, 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 woo.
What a joy. Thank you. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you all for your stewardship of this really, really important effort. I'm honored to take part in today's presentation and really looking forward to future events. I also want to acknowledge everyone else here, and my mother is here, beloved Mama Joyce. So I want to honor her, as well as my sister and my dear friend Folkway. So good to have you all. I'm here and want to acknowledge those of you who will join us later through YouTube and watching this recording. It's wonderful to have you, and you are in the collective field. So let us begin. I am going to share for about 30 minutes, and I'm going to share a bit about my experience with Saturday morning letters. And let's get this on full screen. So the name of my presentation, which I have to credit Dr. Jazz actually. So you gotta cite folks, okay? Have good ethics in your citations. So thank you, Dr. Jazz, for this title, which is Reflecting, Honoring, and Expressing Using Saturday Morning Letters. Again, my name is Kalia. I am a really just excited and thankful member of the University of San Diego community, and I am going to begin my share now. So here's our flow for the day. I'm going to share a little bit about the path to Saturday morning letters, how I began this newsletter. I'm going to share some notes on a quiet place. It's going to do just a little bit of theory to kind of frame some of what I'm sharing. I'll do a brief overview of the ritual that is Saturday morning letters, in hopes that it will support you in thinking about maybe how you might ritualize practices for yourself. And I will read a bit from my most recent letter, which was just this past Saturday. Then I will do a brief grounding and lead us into a writing practice. And the rest of our time will be communal share and reflections. And that share is I mean that in a broad sense. You don't necessarily have to share what you wrote, but you can just speak to the experience. My path to Saturday morning letters. So I wrote my first letter in January 2022, the first week of January. I, at that time, had been really experiencing a season of deep grief and loss. I had, in particular, had lost my most beloved friend, and due to suicide. And I was also experiencing, as a result, just a lot of anxiety around my dissertation. I had started my dissertation proposal, which for those of you who aren't familiar, the dissertation is in the PhD process. It's this culminating big research project that is independent, though you're accompanied by your wonderful committee of faculty members. But it's one where you really get to put your stake in the ground around your research and your scholarship and how you want to contribute. And my work at that time was focused on Black women faculty members in predominantly white institutions. At the same time, I, of course, was in my doctoral study, but I was also working in student affairs here at the university, accompanying students of color, mostly first-gen students who are in a graduate preparation program to be in the field of student affairs, meaning they also are holding space for others as they are trying to navigate their own experiences as minoritized students at a historically white institution. And then, of course, I am a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a great niece, I am a member of community. And so there were all these particular intersections and challenges that I was experiencing. And I was doing my best to just make meaning of those experiences and also support myself through it. What I experienced, and it really kind of came to a head in 2020 with the multiple pandemics that were COVID, that were anti-Black racism, climate change, and otherwise. And I had awareness that part of what I had been experienced was actually racialized gender trauma. And so I mentioned that I was trying to craft this dissertation study on Black women faculty experiences. And I was also teaching. I didn't mention that. I was also teaching. And so what happened was it was a little too close for comfort, right? I was in the research, I'm reading, I'm starting to do a pilot study where I'm actually talking to Black women professors. And at that particular time, in those particular studies, what they were sharing with me were really at times kind of violent experiences that they were having. Of course, that wasn't all that they were having. That was part of it. And in some ways I was too. And so that became really, really difficult, and to the point where I was thankful to be in care with my therapist at the time. And she said, Kalia, why don't you put this research down for a little bit? And let's just see what it's like to try to kind of prioritize yourself in your care. And that process looked like, for me, leaning back into my spirituality, really presencing that. I come from the Black church tradition, though I have had a somewhat complicated past with religion. I still identify as a spiritual person and as a doubting Christian. And so I really leaned into some contemplative practices, really slowing down, leaning into rest. And so with that, I had begun to start to really spend a lot more time with myself, with quiet, with God. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that did. But I was seeking connection with self, I was seeking connection with God, and I was seeking connection with community. I knew those were my lifelines. So I want to frame this a little bit about talking about in the quiet place. So this work comes from Professor Kevin Kwashi in his book, The Sovereignty of Quiet, Beyond Resistance in Black Culture. And he has some other wonderful texts as well. But I want to frame this by talking about quiet and using his definition about quiet being a metaphor for the full range of one's inner life, one's desires, ambitions, hungers, vulnerabilities, and fears. So when I was really presencing my care, leaning into my spirituality, what I was doing was really honoring my interior world. I was honoring my interior life. I was honoring the affective. I was honoring what was going on within me and what those thoughts and challenges and such were. And so I'm thankful for this particular frame, because what Kevin Kwashi does here is talk about this as a cultural framework to say Black life beyond resistance, right? So a lot of times the dominant narrative about Black life is from a resistance frame, right? So we hear about resistance a lot. Lots of Black folks relate to resistance. And though I don't want to completely shy away from resistance, what I understand is that it's only a part of the story, right? It's only part of the frame. It's not the whole frame. And so what the scholar is talking about is that this quiet, by framing quiet versus silence, for example, silence, he talks about as having a different historical connotation for most of us as well, right? Silence as feeling oppressive, silence as feeling like we are silenced. And so he gives us preference to quiet as this metaphor. And so with that, he goes on to talk about quiet not necessarily being synonymous with silence, so it can, but also that it's not to me without movement, right? So quiet can be embodied in many ways, but it's a way to focus on expressiveness of the interior. So in the quiet place, I began just organically and with a little greater intention, to be honest, to have a rendezvous with spirit. And what that looked like in particular, even though I embody my spirituality day to day, I almost said moment to moment, that wouldn't be true. I'm not always as present, but certainly day to day. What I found was there was something about Saturday mornings for me. There was something about the rhythm of Saturday mornings for me where some might even call it a Sabbath, right? It was a time for me to like rest, to have this quiet place, to really presence my interior, to be with some of the challenges and such of the week, to think, to listen deeply, and to journal. And so I would often journal and write. And while at this time, mind you, I again was supposed to be advancing, in my dissertation work. And I wasn't really able to write in a scholarly manner. I wasn't able to kind of advance my proposal at that time, but I was able to write a lot, I was able to write a lot with my Saturday morning rhythms, with my journaling, with my prayers, with my blessings. And so what I started noticing was this kind of ritual, and it looked like Saturday mornings, right? Like attuning to the rhythm of that. It looked like as I was writing, like I wasn't dealing with perfectionism. Learned perfectionism in particular was really what had been plaguing me every time I sat down to write and focus on my dissertation, because I felt the weight of whiteness. I felt the weight of capitalism. I felt the weight of the archetype of the strong Black woman and how I should enact that, or how I might be expected to enact that in my day-to-day life, or even through my dissertation. But in this place, I wasn't focused on that. There wasn't any perfectionism. It was also embodied. I was just very aware. I allowed myself to get cozy. I almost always did it in my bed. My bed seemed to be a really, really sacred place. And then the vibes were right, y'all. Like the vibes were right. Like I would put on my music, I would light my candle, and there was just something about it where it just felt like this really sweet treat that I had for myself. And then it kept it simple and sacred, right? Like it wasn't a space of overthinking. It wasn't a space where I was super concerned with a lot of things, but I was happy to be in the sacred. And so that's the spirit that my writing started to really get presence more. And so now I'm going to do a brief reading from my most recent Saturday morning letter that I wrote on Saturday. I should say that I woke up in early January after having that practice, that generous space of writing and sharing. And one day I thought, again, I talked about wanting to connect with God and self. But one day I thought, what if this is a way for me also to connect with community? And so when I began that, usually if we get like, new year, new me kind of vibes, I was like, I don't know about that. But I do know that I want to continue to serve generously in community and continue to find ways to connect with others that are likely feeling what I'm feeling. And that is when I decided to begin my letter writing. This particular reading I want to share with you, I wrote this in this past week, this past Sunday. My practice is just to write. I don't edit. I mean, I'll read it once over and then send it, right? Because it's not the perfectionism. It doesn't get to live in this space. And so what I'm writing about is this experience that I had just a week ago or a week or two before, which was a Lizzo concert. It was my very first Lizzo concert, y'all. It was so good. But there was a moment that particularly got my attention. And so that is kind of the beginning of this letter. So I'm going to start just for time a little further into the letter, but that's the framing that comes before this. So I say, at this point, the entire VA's arena could finally read what had stopped Lizzo in her tracks. Now, what happened was there was a fan in the crowd, and all we could see at first was just Lizzo pointing at this fan, and we could see that they were holding something, but we didn't know what it was. So that's where I begin here. Live on the Jumbotron, the note typed on a now worn standard size 8.5 by 11 piece of computer paper in all caps stated, "I'm sorry people on Twitter suck. You are beautiful and special." From there, Lizzo began to emphatically speak truth to power. And here was a moment that felt both tender and vulnerable while simultaneously serving as an expression of radical agency and empowerment. Without a doubt, Lizzo has been on the receiving end of an absorbent amount of hate and rhetoric rooted in fat phobia and misogynoir. You don't have to be a race gender studies scholar or even a sociologist to know what it is. It's maddening, and we've got to do better. See, just a couple hours before I arrived at Viejas Arena for this iconic show, I completed my last course for the spring term. Now, before you ask, yes, I've been done with my coursework for the PhD for a couple of years now. But y'all know I stay in somebody's class. Hashtag overeducated Black girl. So last year, I started a certificate in womanist leadership at Union Presbyterian Seminary. And while I have been in school for a long time, I have never had a learning environment that mirrors this one. My courses at the Womanist Leadership Institute are packed out with faith-filled Black women who are mothers, daughters, theologians, pastors, grandmothers, and sister friends who are deeply committed to womanist ethics and our collective healing. The semester's course titled Black Women's Mental Health as Resistance was particularly timely and supportive. Our professor, Dr. Jessica Brown, a clinical psychologist who, when she's not teaching, runs a private practice predominantly serving Black women, is the GOAT. I can talk about Dr. Jessica and the gifted women folk who gather with us every Thursday evening in spring, but as I prepare to close this letter, I want to leave you with one particular offering from our course. Throughout our several weeks together, Dr. Brown exhorted a communal affirmation in the form of a loving prompt. This affirmation is one that I imagine Lizzo had already tucked close to her heart. A truth that fortifies her in speaking with such clarity and authority when she invites us and sometimes demands us to be with our own worthiness and the worthiness of each other. The prompts begin simply like this: if God made me and I'm made in God's image, then fill in the blank. Now, if you haven't already caught it, let me tell you, the medicine is in the then. If you're anything like me, you have developed a bad habit of other if-then statements that don't necessarily align with the way of being and knowing you seek to prioritize for yourself. I'm referring to those formulaic if-then statements that sound more like, if this circumstance that is completely outside of my control, insert there, happens, then I will insert act, be, or trust in some particular way I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Now, friend, in Dr. Jessica's prompt, my response to it evolved throughout the course. On some days, it looked like me completing the sentence stem like this: if God made me and I'm made in God's image, then I must be good too. If God made me and I'm made in God's image, then my body must be good. If God made me and I'm made in God's image, then capitalism will not overcome me. Now, friend, what say you? Will you try it on and join me? And that's where I'll pause. Now, this is where our writing practice begins. And I'm checking time. Oh, my time is going. So
Your time is fine.
okay.
We'll move to the next piece in about 15 minutes. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So what I like to do is for us to just take 1 minute. 1 minute now, just to ground. After that minute, I'm going to invite us to take part in this writing practice that was based off of what I just shared. But allow yourself just to be in the quiet place for 1 minute. Welcoming you back. All right, so at this time, I'm going to invite us to take 7 minutes to reflect or contemplate and respond to the following prompt. And here you get to insert what resonates with you. So I started with, if God made me and I'm made in God's image, then I must be good too. My body must be good. Capitalism won't overcome me. Those are examples of what I just offered. But for you, you can input anything that you like. So you can change any of the blanks there and just allow yourself to follow your intuition. You absolutely can't do this wrong, right? This is not a place for perfectionism. This is not a place for editing. You get to be curious. You can make it a journal. You can free write it. You can make it a poem. You can make it a list. And I'm setting the timer for 7 minutes now. If anyone has a clarifying question, you can ask. And I'm going to put on some little music for us.
Make sure to, when you share, to share with the music on.
Got it.
You see it in the event setting once you go to the share.
Yes,
Then,
I'm still
yeah.
looking for my music. Sorry.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, found it. We give 2 more minutes. Okay. Now I just like we have about 5 minutes, and so I like to just invite experiences. If you want to read what you wrote, you're so welcome. But otherwise, just sharing about your experience or anything that's come up for you since we started.
Well, I'll start. Great job, first of all. Wow. I didn't know all that was in you. Well, I learned a lot about what God has gifted you with, and I'm so pleased. You put me in the mind of Joyce Spencer, and that is a powerful um, um, person to be able to assimilate and to be compared to. But you have such a bright future, and your study, you just made me think about the presence and the focusing on presence. And during this exercise, I continue to say in the present, which is what you articulated very well, and the power of really recognizing what presence is as opposed to what more of an inner reflection. And so just phenomenal. I was wondering, where did you find the time to, everyone has their space, okay? Some use the bathroom, some use outdoors. I was wondering, where did you find your space to write? And you mentioned it was in the bedroom. So you answer that, because I was one of the questions I wrote down. I said, where is she? What space is she using? Everybody has a space, you know. um, very therapeutic. The music kept me in the present. I almost drifted off. I'm gonna be very honest. I was so relaxed, and but I was writing what it was that I think that based on your prompt. But one thing I want to say before I go there, um, I can really see, when you were speaking about your um having a hard time writing in the dissertation and the academic setting, I thought about really what you did tonight, how to incorporate that into your dissertation to help prevent writer's block. And one of the things I did, for me, I was like, I wanted to study spirituality. And that was very hard to do in academic setting. Well, started with religion. So you got to take that out and you got to go to spirituality, because that's something they're going to kick against if you just got religion. So spirituality is the thing. So, but I had to find ways on how to do it. And the only way that I wanted to do it is I wanted to tell the story. So I did it in a narrative form, which allowed for me to create these stories. What I'm hearing, you are a great storyteller, and you should align your dissertation work to what you do best. And I think writer's block will not be an issue, because you will be allowed to use your creativity. And that's what I saw in you, that creativity, wanting to put it in academic settings, but using the power of this freedom of ability to write and to not be concerned about the perfection. Those are the things that I see you need to really, really, you'll write 1,000 pages once you get going and something like that. But the question that I think I came up with was, it was kind of hard to follow. I knew that if, then, and how, but for me, it came in, if we can embody the power of love, we can solve the issue of differences, and notice that it's a strength and not a weakness, but it comes through the power of love, and that's what it accepts all. It's kind, it's understanding. That's what the scripture tells us. So if we can do that, we won't see differences as a liability, but rather as an asset. And I allow space for others to speak. Thank you for this great presentation.
Wow. Thank you so much. That was so rich. Your reflections and your offering at the end. And you, it was so sweet listening to you, because that is what happened. What happened was, one day, through community and others, they were like, this is your dissertation. This is what you need to lean into. And so may it be so. That's what I'm working on now. Yeah, that's what I'm working on now. Exactly what you articulated. So thank you for witnessing me and seeing that possibility. Beautiful. Maybe one more voice, one more person want to share something?
I can share.
Yay.
My name is Fakwe, and this exercise brought up definitely a lot for me, particularly around feelings of like worthiness, and also as someone who is in the academic field but non-academic, and pursuing a graduate degree right now. I think there was just a lot that kind of stemmed from, or a lot of kind of unnecessary connecting of self to like those pursuits. And yeah, I think this exercise was just really great in reframing myself to myself, and just nudging me to consider myself beyond what I have achieved and want to achieve. So some of my statements for the exercise were, if God made me and I'm made in God's image, then he calls the way he made me good. He is the only one who determines my worth. I am purposed to share his light and love, and he deems me precious enough to share himself with me. So yeah, thank you so much for amazing.
Oh my goodness. That was so beautiful. So beautiful. So moved by you, Fakwe. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your presence. Oh, well, Dr. Jess, you're gonna say something?
No, please go.
No, please, because I'm just gonna end now. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, it was thank you all for sharing, and thank you for guiding us in that. One of the things that I noticed was around process was I started to write I will, and then I crossed it out and brought it into present tense. And so I had written, if the universe is guiding me on my path and I'm exactly where I need to be right now, then I put I will be, and then I said, nope, I am seen, valued, and appreciated for my authentic, imperfect self. And yeah, so anyway, so thank you for that as well, and the good reminder of just kind of keeping ourselves in the present. Oftentimes in this work, we think about what we're going to be doing, or we think about what's been done in the past, but we're not always given the opportunity to really kind of center ourselves back into the present, which is what I saw when we first talked at the showcase about this project, is how you got back to center, is what I heard. So thank you so much. Did you want?
Thank you. And yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yeah, yes, you are. Yeah, I'll just end with just one final offering really quickly. And that is a prayer or a blessing that I offered in the beginning of my newsletter last week. And I want to read it to you all as an ending. And I say here, may this sacred space be ceremony in your inbox or in your lives. I pray that it meets you right where you are, that you feel seen, that you feel enlivened and seen, that you forever know you belong. I pray that the seeds planted here harvest in due season. May we collectively inch closer to the liberation we desire for ourselves and each other. Thank you all.
See, another absolutely fantastic speaker and presenter and part of our community. So I know that we're coming up towards the end. I'm going to go through this slide, and then I'm going to ask for us each in the chat to do a little activity. But one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, we always try to look at each one of our events. We try to look for the next one. So we make an announcement on that. In the chat, I have 3 links, the 3 that are listed here. The first one is a feedback form. These feedback forms help guide us in our events. So we really do look at this information seriously and closely so that we can make sure that we're meeting the needs of our community members. So even if you're watching the video of this, you can still fill out the feedback form. We'd also love for you to submit your art, whether it's a video, a poem, an activity, however you're able to express yourself, especially around the work of the Black Lives Matter movement and beyond. We would love to kind of highlight and bring these different voices and perspectives to these spaces, because we think that that's really powerful. And then I have also the registration for our fall event. And this one will be on the 27th of October. That gives us enough time to continue to promote and put this call for proposals for art submissions out there. And then also gives us some time. So I think I put in there that that's due on September 30th. So that gives us about 2 weeks to kind of put it all together and up onto the website. And I really do believe that this has been part of the heart and the joy that this series has brought over the last 3 years is learning about different people's perspectives and experiences through the visual and emotional sharings that we have gotten. So thank you so much. So normally we have a faculty closing. Our faculty member was unable to be here today. And so I was hoping that maybe what we could do is just go into the chat and just write a sentence. If everyone could maybe write a sentence about something that they took from today or something that they hold on. So I always think about in my classes, I always talk about hold in your head, hold in your heart, hold in your hands. And so if there's something that you could share, and if you want to keep it anonymous, you can just send it to me and I can read it out. But I think it's always a good way to close out our different sessions, is just really acknowledging the space. And I'll just say one of the things that I took was the silence versus quiet. And I have been traveling, and I've been traveling a lot by myself. And I've chosen not to put my earbuds in, because I think sometimes we put our earbuds in and we get into this place. So I've actually been kind of sitting there with those 2 words as I've walked through places I haven't been before. And so I want to thank you for taking that idea and giving it a place to hold it. So yeah, we've got the power of silence, not in a marginalized way. I really enjoyed the reflection that we shared towards the end. I appreciate the new ways of relaxing and practicing mindfulness to improve my weaknesses, leaning in and being curious. These are all great, powerful places. Power of communal reflection and presence. I hold in my heart the power of the reflection statement. It was a beautiful prayer poem at the end too, Kalia. So thank you so much for sharing with us. I feel honored to be part of this space. So, all right. Well, I'm going to. Did anyone have anything else that they'd like to say before I?
I just want to say that what it's been a great session. I look forward to the future of your work, Kalia. It is something that I know once you complete this, then your work is going to begin.
Yeah.
This is just the part of preparing you, and those stumbling roadblocks, whatever. I
Mm.
think you're ready to get by them based on this presentation. I think gave you something to see your beauty. You know, one of the things I share, and I wrote a quick little poem about it for our youth program. I said, it's amazing how beautiful butterflies are. But the thing about butterflies, they never see their wings. Everybody else sees their beauty, but the butterfly can't. So the only way that they can see is if they fly over some water to see the reflection of their beauty. So I encourage you to continue to see the reflection of your beauty to see how gifted and beautiful you are. And I'll close with that.
All right. Thank you all.